My name is Mike. I'm 43 years old, and for most of my life I believed that if you showed up every single day, people would eventually recognize your place in their lives. I know better now. When I married Amy, she came with 2 children, a 15-year-old daughter named Chloe and her younger brother, Noah. Their biological father, Brad, had already mastered the art of disappearing. He drifted in and out of their lives whenever it suited him, always carrying promises that sounded convincing until they quietly dissolved into excuses. He wasn't completely gone. That would have been easier. Instead, he appeared just often enough to remind everyone he existed. A birthday card every now and then. A weekend visit that got cancelled at the last minute. A random payment that arrived months late, followed by weeks of silence. He lived like a guest in his own children's lives, while I was expected to carry the weight of being their father without ever receiving the title. I accepted that responsibility willingly. At least I thought I did. I worked as a logistics manager, the kind of job where every delay became your problem and every mistake landed on your desk. Long hours. Endless phone calls. Constant pressure. None of it bothered me because every paycheck had a purpose. I wasn't buying toys or expensive vacations. I was building stability. When Chloe got her driver's license, I added her to my insurance policy without thinking twice. The monthly premium barely had time to register before another expense appeared. Gas card. Oil changes. New tires. Brake repairs. Registration fees. Every time something happened with that car, Amy would look at me with worried eyes before she even asked the question. "I'll take care of it." Those words became automatic. Then there was school. Textbooks. Activity fees. Senior pictures. Graduation expenses. College application costs. There was always something. Noah wasn't much different. Sports equipment. Dental appointments. School clothes after another growth spurt. New glasses when he broke the old pair playing basketball. If either kid needed medicine, I bought it. If the refrigerator was empty, I filled it. If the washing machine broke, I replaced it. If someone needed money for a field trip, it came from my wallet before anyone else even reached for theirs. Brad rarely contributed enough to matter. Whenever Amy called him about helping with expenses, there was always another explanation waiting. "My hours got cut. I'll send something next Friday. The bank messed up. I'm waiting on a check." Sometimes he actually did send money. $100. Maybe 2. Just enough for everyone to say he was trying. The rest quietly landed on my shoulders. I never kept score. At least that's what I told myself. Because keeping score felt selfish. I believed families weren't built through biology. They were built through consistency. Through showing up. Through solving problems before anyone else even noticed they existed. I convinced myself that one day Chloe and Noah would look back and realize who had actually been there. Instead, they learned something very different. They learned that I would always fix everything. When Chloe's phone cracked, she didn't ask if I could afford another one. She simply left it on the kitchen counter with a note. "Need a new screen." When Noah wanted new basketball shoes, he never thanked me after I bought them. He just asked whether I could get the newer model next time. Neither of them were openly cruel. Not at first. It was smaller than that. Sharper. They never introduced me as their stepdad. I was always, "This is Mike." When relatives asked who I was, Chloe answered before anyone else could. "My mom's husband." Never family. Never dad. Never even stepdad. Just the man married to their mother. I tried telling myself it didn't matter. Respect took time. Trust took time. Love definitely took time. 6 years should have been enough. Every birthday I organized. Every Christmas I paid for. Every emergency I solved. Every sacrifice I made. Surely they saw it. Surely they understood. Looking back now, I realize I confused dependence with appreciation. Someone can rely on you every single day, without valuing you for even one of them. And I was about to learn just how little my place in that family actually meant. The first real crack didn't come during some dramatic family disaster. It came during an ordinary Tuesday dinner. Those are the moments people never talk about. Families don't usually fall apart because of one spectacular event. They crumble one quiet evening at a time, through 100 small reminders that one person around the table doesn't truly belong. Amy had made spaghetti. Noah was talking about basketball practice, Chloe was scrolling through her phone without looking up, and I had just come home after a 12-hour shift trying to untangle a shipping nightmare that had kept me on my feet since sunrise. I remember looking around the table and thinking, this is why I work so hard. The mortgage was paid. The refrigerator was full. Chloe's insurance payment had gone through that morning. I'd also paid for new brake pads because the mechanic said they couldn't wait another month. No one at the table knew any of that. They never had to. That's how I wanted it. "You'll need to put gas on my car tomorrow," Chloe said without lifting her eyes from her screen. Not, "Could you?" Not, "Would you mind?" Just a reminder. Like she was talking to an employee whose job description she assumed I already understood. "I filled it 4 days ago," I replied. "I'm almost empty." She shrugged. "I've been driving." That was the entire explanation. Amy didn't react. Neither did Noah. It was normal. Everything I provided had become normal. No one noticed the bills being paid because the lights never went out. Nobody appreciated insurance because Chloe had never worried about driving uninsured. They didn't think about groceries because the pantry somehow refilled itself every week. I had made life so comfortable that my effort had become invisible. A few days later, Chloe called while I was still at work. "My tire blew. I'll leave early," I said. "I'll meet you." I drove 40 minutes across town. Bought 2 new tires because replacing only one wasn't safe. Paid the bill. Waited while the mechanic finished. Then drove her car home because she wanted to meet friends for dinner. She thanked the mechanic. She thanked the cashier. She never thanked me. Again, I told myself it wasn't important. Teenagers rarely notice things outside their own lives. At least that's what I kept believing. Noah wasn't much different. Whenever he needed new cleats, he simply left the old ones by the garage door. Whenever his phone bill was due, he assumed it had already been paid. Whenever school announced another fee, the paper somehow found its way onto my desk. Never a conversation. Never appreciation. Just expectation. Even Brad benefited from my generosity. Whenever the children complained about him missing another weekend visit, Amy would soften the disappointment. "Your dad's busy. He still loves you. He'll make it up next time." Next time rarely came. But somehow, he remained the father. I remained the wallet. Sometimes Brad would send a couple $100 and Amy would smile. "At least he's trying." Trying. That word stayed with me. Because I was doing far more than trying. I was carrying their entire household. Yet nobody ever described my efforts with that kind of kindness. One Saturday afternoon I was cleaning the garage when I overheard Chloe talking to one of her friends in the driveway. "Who's that?" Her friend nodded toward me. "Oh." Chloe laughed. "That's just Mike." Just Mike. 3 words. Nothing cruel. Nothing loud. But they echoed inside me longer than they should have. Not my stepdad. Not the guy who raised us. Not even my mom's husband. Just Mike. Like I was some neighbor helping with yard work. I stood there holding a box of old tools, listening to them drive away. For a few seconds I wondered if I was expecting too much. Maybe respect couldn't be earned. Maybe biology always won. Maybe no amount of sacrifice could compete with shared blood. I pushed the thought aside. Families weren't built overnight. 6 years wasn't a lifetime. There was still time. There had to be. Because if 6 years of paying every bill, solving every crisis, and showing up every single day still wasn't enough, then I had already lost a place I never truly had. The moment that changed everything didn't arrive with shouting. It arrived with a smile. Looking back, that's the part one remember most. Not anger. Not raised voices. A smile that told me exactly what 6 years had meant. It happened on a Sunday evening after dinner. Amy had mentioned that Chloe's insurance would increase once the policy renewed. I already knew. The notice had arrived 3 days earlier, and I'd planned to absorb the extra cost without saying a word. That's what I'd always done. "We should probably drive a little more carefully," Amy said with a tired laugh. "Insurance companies love taking money." Chloe rolled her eyes. "They're robbers." I smiled. "Unfortunately, that's how it works." She barely looked at me. "Well, you'll figure it out." "Not we. You'll." Like the extra expense belonged to me alone. I let it pass. Then Noah brought up college. "My guidance counselor wants me to visit a few campuses this fall." "That's a good idea," I said. "We'll make a plan." He shrugged. "I'll probably need money for applications." Amy looked toward me instinctively. Not because she expected me to volunteer. Because she already assumed I would. "We'll handle it," I answered. The conversation continued as if nothing unusual had happened. Nobody asked whether I could afford another expense. Nobody wondered if I was tired. Nobody asked whether I wanted to spend another weekend driving across the state for college tours. It was simply expected. I had become the answer before anyone finished asking the question. That realization stayed with me for weeks. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Whenever something broke, everyone looked at me. Whenever money was needed, everyone looked at me. Whenever decisions became difficult, everyone looked at me. But when family photos were posted online, I was rarely in them. Amy uploaded pictures from Chloe's birthday. Mother and daughter. Brother and sister. Even one of Brad from years earlier. I wasn't in a single photo. I had been the one standing behind the camera. Again. A few days later, Chloe needed her car serviced. The estimate came to nearly $900. Without hesitation, Amy handed me the invoice. "The mechanic says it can't wait." I read it. Folded it. Put it into my pocket. "I'll take care of it." Those 4 words had become dangerous. Not because they were difficult to say. Because everyone had stopped hearing them. They sounded as ordinary as breathing. The repairs were finished 2 days later. Chloe grabbed the keys from the kitchen counter. "Car's done?" "Yes." "Good." She walked out. That was it. No thank you. No appreciation. Nothing. I stood at the window watching her drive away in a car I had just spent almost $1,000 repairing. Amy noticed the look on my face. "She's 18, she said softly. "They're all like that." "No," I answered quietly. "They're not." Amy frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean gratitude doesn't depend on age." She sighed. "You know Chloe appreciates everything." I looked at her. "Does she?" Amy didn't answer. Instead, she changed the subject. That hurt more than I expected. Not because she defended Chloe. Because she couldn't honestly defend her. She simply wanted the conversation to disappear. That was Amy's way. Whenever the kids crossed the line, she'd smooth things over instead of confronting them. Whenever they ignored me, she'd pretend not to notice. Whenever Brad disappointed them, she'd invent another excuse. Peace mattered more than truth. I convinced myself she was trying to protect everyone. Now I think she was protecting herself. Because demanding respect would have required uncomfortable conversations. Silence was easier. For everyone except me. Then came the family barbecue. Amy's relatives filled the backyard. Laughter. Music. Kids running through the grass. One of her cousins asked Chloe a harmless question while I was standing only a few feet away. "So, does your dad still live in Ohio?" She smiled. "No, that's Brad." The cousin looked confused. "And Mike?" Chloe laughed. "Oh." She shrugged. "He's just Mom's husband." Just Mom's husband. The words landed harder than I expected. 6 years. Thousands of hours. Hundreds of sacrifices. Countless bills. Reduced to 4 casual words spoken without a second thought. Nobody noticed my expression. Nobody corrected her. Not Amy. Not anyone. I smiled politely and walked inside before anyone could see what those words had done to me. Standing alone in the kitchen, I stared out the window at the family I had spent years supporting. For the first time, I wasn't wondering whether they loved me. I was wondering whether they had ever respected me at all. I didn't know it yet. But the answer was only days away. And once I heard it, there would be no going back. The argument started over something so small that I almost can't remember how it began. The dishwasher had stopped working 2 days earlier, and I had spent my Saturday morning replacing the drain pump instead of sleeping in after another exhausting week at work. By the time I finished, I was dirty, tired, and still had emails waiting for me from the office. All I wanted was one quiet evening. Instead, everyone ended up in the kitchen. Amy was frustrated because groceries had become more expensive. Noah complained that his basketball team wanted new uniforms. Chloe said her car was making another strange noise and wanted me to schedule another appointment with the mechanic. Every sentence seemed to end the same way. We have to. Can you? Not one person asked how I was doing. Not one person noticed that I'd spent the entire day fixing appliances, paying bills, and making sure the house kept running. I leaned against the counter and rubbed my forehead. We're going to have to slow down on some spending for a while. The room became quiet. Chloe looked up from her phone for the first time all evening. What do you mean? I mean we've had a lot of unexpected expenses lately. She frowned. My car still needs to be looked at. I know. And my insurance payment is next week. I know. So, you'll handle it. It wasn't a question. It was an assumption. Something inside me finally refused to nod automatically. We'll have to look at everything first. Her eyebrows lifted. What does that mean? It means we may have to prioritize. She laughed. Actually laughed. Prioritize what? The things we can afford. For a second, nobody spoke. Then Chloe leaned back in her chair, folded her arms, and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger. It was contempt. So now you're acting like you're my dad? The words hung in the air. I answered quietly. No. I'm acting like the person paying for everything. Noah snorted. The sound was short, amused. Nobody asked you to. I looked at him. No? He shrugged. You always volunteer. That sentence hurt because it contained just enough truth to sting. I had volunteered. Every time. Without hesitation. Without conditions. Amy stepped forward. Guys. But neither of them was listening anymore. Chloe shook her head with a smirk spreading across her face. You know what your problem is? I stayed silent. You think buying things makes you family? The room suddenly felt smaller. I never thought that. No? She tilted her head. Then why do you keep acting like we owe you something? I don't want anything. Sure you do. She smiled. You want us to pretend you're our dad. I've never asked you to call me dad. No. She laughed again. But you sure act like you deserve it. Amy finally tried to interrupt. Chloe, enough. Her daughter didn't even look at her. Instead, she looked directly into my eyes. There wasn't an ounce of hesitation. Not even a flicker. Then she said the sentence that destroyed 6 years of hope. You're just my mom's biggest mistake. Silence. Absolute silence. Noah burst into laughter. Not nervous laughter. Not uncomfortable laughter. Real laughter. He leaned back in his chair, shaking his head as if Chloe had just delivered the funniest joke he'd ever heard. I looked at Amy. I wasn't waiting for her to defend me. I was expecting it. There are moments in a marriage when one sentence determines everything that follows. This was one of them. Amy looked at Chloe. Then at Noah. Then at me. Her lips parted. No words came out. She simply stood there. Silent. That silence lasted only a few seconds. It felt like 6 years. In those seconds I finally understood something I had refused to see. Chloe hadn't become this comfortable insulting me overnight. Noah hadn't learned to laugh at my humiliation by accident. They behaved that way because nothing had ever taught them otherwise. Because every previous insult had been ignored. Every slight excused. Every moment of disrespect quietly swept aside in the name of keeping peace. Amy's silence wasn't new. I was only noticing it for the first time. I looked around the kitchen. The table I'd paid for. The groceries I'd bought. The lights I kept on. The house I helped maintain. Then I looked back at the 3 people standing in front of me. For the first time in 6 years, I stopped feeling like part of the family. And I started feeling like the man financing strangers.